The tiny Principality of Liechtenstein, which stretches over a length of just 25 kilometers, was on the verge of buying the huge territory of Alaska from Russia and thus preempting the USA. The story sounds too unbelievable to be true, which is why it was long dismissed as a rumor. However, it has since been confirmed by the Prince of Liechtenstein himself. So today we look at the incredible story of why Liechtenstein almost bought Alaska. Alaska was occupied by Russia from the 18th century, which used it primarily as a base for fur hunting. In the centuries before, Russia moved its border further and further east and eventually crossed the Bering Strait to take possession of parts of the American continent. However, it quickly became clear that Russia had overextended itself with the conquest of Alaska, as the area was now simply too far away from the Russian center. In addition, after a century most of the sea otters had been wiped out, making the fur trade increasingly difficult. It was also facing increasing competition from other colonial powers, especially the British. Russia would not have been able to defend it in the event of an attack by Great Britain, but they wanted to avoid further expansion of the British Empire at all costs. So it was clear that Alaska had to be sold. The Russians therefore set about looking for a potential buyer, but it had to be a country that would not compete with the Russians and would not pose a threat to the Russian Far Eastern territories. As we know, the choice eventually fell on the United States, which was expanding at the time. They won the bid for Alaska in 1867 for $7.2 million, which would be the equivalent of $120 million today. What went unmentioned for a long time, however, was that the United States was not the only state with which the Russians negotiated. It was only in recent years that the whole story of the negotiations over Alaska became public. Even before the sale was discussed with the USA, Tsar Alexander II approached the Prince of Liechtenstein, with whom he had good relations at the time, and offered to buy the vast territory. To compare the incredible scales again, you have to look at the area of the two states. Alaska is almost 11,000 times larger than Liechtenstein, which means that the purchase would have made Liechtenstein one of the largest colonial powers in one fell swoop. However, the prince refused. Although he would have had the financial means to do so, he did not see much value in the territory apart from fur hunting, which is why he left Alaska to another buyer. And for this other buyer, the United States, the purchase of the territory turned out to be a real blessing. Only a short time later, a gold rush set in and the black gold of oil was found in Alaska. It also became indispensable for the USA due to its strategic location. The success of Alaska was entirely due to the leadership of Liechtenstein, which to this day is annoyed that it did not take action at the time. The story of Liechtenstein's negotiations to purchase Alaska only emerged in recent years and was initially dismissed as a rumor. In 2018, however, the Prince of Liechtenstein wrote a letter to the Liechtenstein newspapers confirming the truth of the story and saying that the princely family often regretted turning down the offer. It must be said, however, that it would have been highly uncertain to what extent Liechtenstein would have been able to administer and, above all, defend the colony at that time. After all, the dwarf state only has 38,000 inhabitants today and only around 8,000 at the time of the Alaska purchase. As other European powers, above all the British and Spanish, also had a great interest in Alaska, the territory would probably have been invaded and annexed by them sooner or later. Unlike the United States, Liechtenstein was simply not powerful enough and was also simply too far away from America geographically. Moreover, Liechtenstein did not even have its own port from which the overseas territory could have been reached, which is why other European powers could easily have cut it off. However, if the territory had remained in Liechtenstein's hands despite all the difficulties, German would probably be spoken there today. It would certainly have become one of the most popular destinations for German immigrants in search of a new life, and Liechtenstein would be a much bigger player on the international stage today.